Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave. It's Jem here. I was kind of swithering whether or not I wanted to do a video with this or not, but I decided at the last minute that it was worthy of a bonus video at least. I feel as if on the channel just lately I've been doing a lot of product stuff and not an actual awful lot of art, and I know that's because of moving and one thing and another, but I just felt that this video was quite important because here in the UK we don't have a lot of choice in terms of art subscription boxes unless we choose to go over the pond to the States and foot the bill for shipping and also for customs fees, which are ridiculous sometimes. So today is an unboxing, but it's a little bit different because this box, it's a new box on the market. It is quarterly rather than monthly, so I thought it would be interesting to find out what's involved in that and to see if they've taken like a different approach to the whole subscription box thing compared to what is out there already. And with it being UK based, I felt I would be doing a disservice if I didn't review it. So we are going to go to top down view and we can see what is going on with the Artful subscription box. Let's get going. So this is the Artful subscription box. It is a quarterly box rather than the monthly boxes that we are used to. So they are a little bit more expensive. This box comes in at £35, but you're getting 4 of these a year. It does feel quite heavy, and I've deliberately not done too much research into this because I wanted to find out about this with you guys and for us to do it together so we can discover together. It does feel quite substantial, and there's quite a lot of emphasis when you see the adverts for this box. There's quite a lot of adverts on Facebook for it just now, and they put a really heavy emphasis on the fact that the contents have been curated by an artist, so it's very artist centric rather than just a company that spits out subscription boxes. So I'm quite curious to see what's inside, and I have deliberately avoided all of the media so that, as I said, we're kind of discovering together. So let's crack this open and see what's inside. Everything's very neat and wrapped up, and they have this lovely pattern on the top, and it says here, we want to see what you can do with your box, share your creativity. So there's a hashtag, and they talk about following them on Instagram, so that's kind of standard fare. And there's also a bit of inspiration. You can go to the blog of the company that make the box, which is odear.com, and they say that you can find lots of inspiration there if you're struggling for ideas. And this looks like a magazine of some description. So it says issue 1 at the bottom, and there's a page describing what to expect in the box, etc., and then the list of the materials. I'm assuming that then we go on to talk about the artist, Mike Lowry, there we go, and there's a huge sort of interviewee type bit there as well, and then we're going on to projects, so we'll have a look at that in a bit more depth in a while, but that is a really high quality magazine. So let's take a look at the actual art supplies. I have to say I'm quite taken with the box. It's quite nice, it's quite aesthetically pleasing, and we've got some lovely blue tissue paper here, and everything's all nice and neat, and it's in a little envelope. Oh, that's really cute. So everything's in there. And we have a sketch pad, and it's got sketch on the front just in case you forget what it is. So let's have a little feel of this paper. It's slightly textured, it's relatively thick as well, so I'm probably going to say that's between maybe 180 and 220 GSM, just a guess. There's no information on what kind of paper it is. I'm imagining that will be in the booklet, but it seems with a slight bit of texture on it that it will take quite a variety of mediums. You certainly could use pencil on this, and by the thickness of it, I think it might take a little bit of water-based media. If you were to use alcohol on it, I think perhaps it would maybe bleed through, but we can certainly test that out, that's not a problem. Let's have a little look in here. Let's have this out, please. Oh, wee! I like these are really old-fashioned. I remember these from school. Okay, oh, hello. So we've got a selection of Posca pens, and these are quite chunky ones. This is a 5M, so this is, I would say that these are designed more for like craft projects, and I'll show you in a minute. The nibs are quite big on them, although they do come to a point, so you can get finer details with them. My preference would be a 3M or a 1M, which is a tiny little point, you know, for doing details. So this is not really going to be much use for detail work. I do like the selection of colours. They've gone for more of a pastel approach, and they look quite pretty all sitting there together. So we can have a wee bash at them in a minute, and I'll explain a bit more about Posca Pens as I go there. And we have the mandatory, oh, this is a brush pen, I beg your pardon. This is a Tumbled brush pen, and it's black, and it's a water-based pigment ink, and it actually says on it that it's a hard tip. You can see it there, so that's very fine, so we'll get some nice fine details with that, which is lovely. There's quite a selection of things in here. These are the Tumbled ABT, so that's the dual tip pens, and we've got one in grey and black. They don't have colour names, but they've got codes on them, so we've got N15 and N75 here, so I'm assuming that's neutral. And that's what I call a traditional brush tip, and I'm imagining that these will be a lot softer as well. And on the other end's a little sort of bullet nib, again what we would call a felt tip nib. So that's quite interesting, so we've got two of those. These pens have a really good reputation. I don't own any of these, but for water-based markers with a brush tip, these are really popular. So we can have a wee bash at those in a minute too. A mono twin, so again this is another dual-tipped marker. And most of the writing is Japanese on this, so I have no idea. Again, it's a Tombow, so we've got a bullet tip and what looks like more like a fine linery type normal pen, but that looks like a plastic nib that's on that. Standard fare pencil, a mono 100, so again this is all Tumbled products, and this is a 3H, so that's quite a hard leaded pencil, which is great for sketching. You won't get any shading done with that, but if you're just looking for structural lines and things like that, that's perfect. And a little mono plastic eraser as well. It's so dinky. Oh. Okay, so that's quite a nice well-rounded set of supplies. It's quite a simple box. The items are very high quality, very well-known brands. So what I'm going to do is, once we've filmed this, I will have a look at the value of this, and I'll put it up on the screen somewhere for you just now, so that you can actually see roughly what you could pick these items up for individually versus the £35 that you're paying for the box. Now bear in mind that some of that has to go towards finding an artist that wants to procure a box, and also the collation and printing of this lovely magazine. So far the feeling I'm getting is that this box would be suited perhaps to newer artists that maybe need a little bit of guidance and that are trying to build up their arsenal of supplies. So let's have a little look in here and see what it says about our supplies. So there's like a diagram, and it shows you them all and tells you what they all are down at this side. So that's quite nice. Okay, this page shows you what the pens are like when you use them. To me, this is kind of like a wasted page. Part of the enjoyment of having one of these boxes is doing this part yourself. So I'm not entirely sure what the idea is behind that. Obviously they want to showcase what it is, but this is exactly the kind of thing, like this is how you learn about supplies, is by doing this type of thing yourself. So I'm not that impressed with that. Also, the way they seem to advertise the boxes and the contents of the box, which I think is a bit weird, because one of the reasons I like getting subscription boxes is that element of surprise and sort of delving into it and discovering the things and figuring out how they work, you know, that kind of thing. So this is Mike's sort of interviewee type part, which we'll not look into too much. And this is just a random page with an advert. This is obviously advertising products on their website. Ah, here we go. Okay, so we've got some actual projects. Project 1, map making. Mike shows us how to create an illustrated map in his first Skillshare class. So they're in cahoots with Skillshare as well, which I think's a really nice idea. That's kind of cool. So the idea is that you will go and watch his video. So this isn't actually step by step, it's just pointing you towards the Skillshare class, which is fine, I suppose. And there's some nice pictures of what he's done. It's a map of Ireland, which is quite cute. This is nice for inspiration. Project 2, pot painting with the Posca Pens. Project 3, techniques for transparency. Again, not actually instructive in any way. Yep, Skillshare and Artful, there we go. So Skillshare are providing 3 free months premium membership. Now that's all very fair and well, but most people might not, I wouldn't say most people, that's not fair, I'm casting aspersions there, it's not everyone's cup of tea. And it gives you some artists to follow if you want some inspiration, which is quite cool, and it's giving you an example of their work. Oh, there's a whole lot of them. So if you're looking for inspiration, this is great, this is really cool. There's a bit about some charity work here for artistic types as well. This really is like a proper magazine, so there's another sort of interview here, more interviews. Brendan Pang creates his art in the kitchen, he makes multicoloured dumplings. Oh, these are pretty, look how nice they look. So this is it's very social media centred, you know, like, and very internet centred, which I suppose is good in a way because that kind of brings us into the modern age. But it's a lot of interviews. There's not actually a lot about what's in the box, which I'm kind of disappointed about. I do love these cactus stacking cups though, how cool are they? An advert for Tumbled, yeah. Okay, so this is more like an art magazine, which is fine. I'm a little bit disappointed that there isn't more instructional things. There's a bit on films as well. Again, another advert for another subscription box. Yeah, okay. For so much effort that's gone into this publication, which is what it is, I would have expected it to be a bit more relevant to the supplies that have come in the box. This is basically just pointing you in the direction of Skillshare and saying, hey, follow everyone on Instagram, and that's great because that's all part and parcel of being an artist in this day and age, but there isn't really much on the supplies. So I'm kind of disappointed in this, to be honest. If I wanted an art magazine, I would just go out and buy one, and at least I could pick one where the articles, you know, that are on the front cover would catch my eye, whereas you're getting this by default. So I don't know how I feel about this, and there is no detail on the paper on the sketch pad as far as I can see. No, nothing. So yeah, that's kind of disappointing. I always like to know what kind of paper. I am quite fixated on paper though, to be fair. And I would, even if there was details on the back of the pad, that would be great, but there's just nothing. Right, so let's have a talk about these supplies then, and we'll figure it out ourselves. Fine, it's okay. A 3H pencil, we'll get this sharpened up and see what it does. Okay, the first thing I notice about the pencil now that I've sharpened it is that the core is off centre. It might be quite difficult to see, but on one side there is a lot of the core showing, and then if I just turn it over you can see that the wood goes really far up the lead, so that means that the core isn't actually centred in the pencil, so that's kind of like a quality thing. Anyway, never mind, it's a 3H pencil, so it's going to be quite hard. And if I just sort of vary my pressure a little bit, you can see the lines are really scratchy. See, ideally the H range of pencils, they're more for light sketching, construction lines, that sort of thing, and to go with the set of pens we've got, that's perfect. I mean, that's a great idea. The pencil's going down fine on this paper. I want to try a pencil that I would use more often, you know, something that I'm more familiar with. So I've got here a 2B pencil, which is a pencil I use all the time, and it's not an expensive one, it's just a Koh-i-Noor one. But this gives me a better gauge of the texture of the paper with it being a slightly softer pencil, and it's picking up the pencil great, and you can see by the texture on the paper, if I just zoom in now and I show you that, you can see there that you can see the texture of the paper coming through, and that's a sign that the paper's grabbing onto the graphite, so that's pretty good. So it's definitely sketch pad material, I would say. So let's look at these Posca pens now as well. So you've got to prime all of these Posca pens. It is water-based paint that's in them, they are paint markers, and when you first get them and you take them out of the wrapper, they have the tips are white, and eventually what happens is the paint just runs down and soaks in, and then you're ready to go. So you've got to shake them like crazy, and then you've got to pump the tip of them to get the paint to come down. Okay, so here's the pink one ready to go. So using it on its tip, because you can see the end of it's quite flat, so if I just put a straight line and then on its side, You can see the nib thickness of it, and you get this lovely flat opaque colour because it's a paint marker, and that's why I really like Posca pens, and they work on like a bajillion surfaces. I have got the other size nibs here. I don't have the pale pink and a little tiny nib, but it was just to show you the difference. So this is a 5M nib, and the next one down that I have is a 3M. I'm just going to give this a little shake because this has been sitting for a while, this one. If they have been lying for a wee while, what happens is the paint tends to separate in the barrel, and then when you go to use them, the first couple of strokes are quite watery because the paint's not mixed. So if you haven't used them in a little while, just giving them a quick shake is enough to mix the paint in the barrel again before you go. And I always test them on a scrap of paper before I put them on my piece. So if I do the same thing again, keep the pen vertical, and then on its side, you can see the difference in the line widths. And this is a brighter pink, but this is the 1M, so this is like a little diddly one. And the point on that is much pointier. I know that's not very scientific, but this is a very delicate pen for detail work, and they're great for finishing off pictures. So you can see the sort of scale that we're on, and we're definitely at the chunky end of the scale. So I'm just going to prime the other ones, and then I can swatch them out and show you. That's a lovely colour. I do like that turquoisey colour. Okay, so here's the pale peachy colour. And that's quite nice as well. Somewhere between sort of peach, orange and yellow, I suppose, isn't it? So the one thing I will say about these is I really like the selection of colours together. Obviously they've gone for this pastel theme, and they do complement each other. So that I think that what they've tried to do is curate a really sort of concentrated set of supplies that do complement each other. And it's something that a lot of you have actually commented on previously, that they feel like some of the subscription boxes are just kind of thrown together. So that's quite nice. So let's take a look at these Tombow dual markers as well. So I think this one is black, and let's have a look at the brush. Okay, the brushes, it's still quite firm, but there's a lot of flexibility in the very tip of it. So that's quite nice because you can get a great variation in your line width and your style. And I always feel with brush pens you can get really expressive strokes with them. I quite like them for that, although I don't use ink an awful lot. And the other end is, say, what we would call a felt tip pen in the UK, and it's just a finer point, and you won't get any sort of line width variation with that because of the shape of the tip. But again, maybe for outlining and things, you know, you're going to get a nice consistent line, so it's nice to have the two in one marker. Oh, it's quite a pale grey, it's quite a delicate grey. I would say that's maybe like an elephant grey. I don't know. Again, the brush marker is nice because you've got that variety of flexibility and firmness in the same brush. It's very nice. And there is the grey felt tip. Now the felt tip end is very, very firm. Very, very firm. I'd just like to point that out. Right, so we've got this one here. Now this is it says a firm brush tip, and it's quite fine as well. So let's see what this, it's very fine. Yeah, that is a firm brush for sure. I actually really like this because you have a lot of control, so even if you're not particularly skilled with a brush pen, you can still get that brush effect just by putting a little bit of pressure on, but the nib isn't actually like flapping about all over when you're doing it. So if you're a little bit less experienced with brush pens, this pen is going to be fabulous for you. I like that a lot, and it's a nice deep rich black as well. Now this one, I'm really not sure what the point of this one is because we've kind of got dual tip markers. So this is like a felt tip end, again black, and then we've got this plastic nib, which is like halfway between a ballpoint and a fine liner. I don't know. This reminds me of the pens that I normally use are the Pigma Micron pens, and they do what they call a PN, which stands for plastic nib. So this is the one that I normally use, and if I just compare the tips on these, you'll see what I mean. They're very similar, and they remind me of the old B-roll handwriting pens we used to get given at school. I don't know whether I'm giving my age away there or not. That's what they put me in mind of, and see, to be fair, in art I don't really use them. I'm not saying that they're not useful, but for me it's not something I use on a regular basis. The last thing we've got here that I nearly forgot about was our little mono eraser, so I'm going to see how well this erases. And yeah, that's doing a fine job. And this is the 2B pencil again, which I use, and with it being a softer pencil, it does tend to erase better, but that's picking up the graphite no problem. So we've got a good sturdy wee plastic eraser, and I quite like plastic erasers actually. I'm quite fond of them. So there we go. For your £35 then, you've got this sketch pad, and there does seem to be an awful lot of paper in it. You know, it's a good chunky sketch pad, it's not just a couple of sheets, which is really nice. I just wish we had a bit more information on the type of paper. And we've got our 3H pencil and the eraser that goes with it. And then we have this selection of lovely Posca pens in the 5M nibs, all in complementary colours, as well as these two Tombow dual markers and this slightly smaller of finer points as well. I'm still kind of digesting this, all this information, because we have this magazine as well. I'm really not sure how I feel about the box. I really like the idea of a quarterly box, and I feel that we might get a more carefully curated and slightly higher quality set of supplies, just because there's that time in between each box. I'm not sure I like the way that they've done this, and I can see that they're trying to do something a wee bit different, because at the end of the day we've kind of seen it all with the subscription boxes, but I just don't know how I feel about it. I said this before about Upcrate when it came out as well. It's very difficult to judge something like this on one box. You have to give the companies time to develop relationships with art supply companies, with artists, and we do tend to find that these boxes get better over time. The first ones usually just put it out and gauge the response and work from there, and as long as they're listening to the people that have subscribed to the boxes, it usually works quite well. I'm not convinced that for £35 I feel that I'm getting my money's worth. So I feel that newer artists with limited supplies might feel differently. I just feel like a lot of time and money has gone into this magazine, and a magazine is not the reason that I would want a subscription box. And again, everybody's different, that is just my opinion. I feel as if most of the money's gone into this rather than really thinking about what they're doing, and it's a sort of, it's as if the art supplies have just been chucked in with this magazine, because there's really not an awful lot to go to unless you're going to go to Skillshare, which that's obviously part and parcel of it. I'm wondering if they're going to do this partnership with Skillshare every month. So I don't know, there's still a lot of inspiration in here though, and especially if you're an artist-centric person and you like to follow people on Instagram, there's absolutely tons of that in there, and it's packed. So what I will say is I'm quite impressed with the quality of the supplies. Unfortunately for me, it's things I already own and not things that I would necessarily use, but I do think they're very high quality art supplies, and you could produce some lovely art with this. There should for me be more information on each of the supplies without having to go to the internet, because we can do that anyway. We don't need a subscription box to tell us that. I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think of the contents of this and your opinions, because I think it's really good to discuss these kind of things. So please feel free to drop a comment down below underneath the video in the comments section. Thanks for watching everyone, and have a good day. Bye for now.